So the city of Portland is in the process right now of clearing a huge homeless camp in North Portland. Meanwhile, the homeless that live there are basically saying, yeah, we'll come back after it's clean. Thank you so much for cleaning up our encampment here. Good job. Well done. We'll just return when things are all copacetic. So literally, while the cleanup is going on, homeless scoot to another location somewhere near close by because, you don't want to move your stuff too far. And then when the coast is clear, when they look at the cleared out encampment, it's all hunky-dory. Yep, they move on back. And they're literally telling everybody that this is what they're doing. So let's take a look. Let's see what the actual mechanics of this are and how this goes down and why isn't the city of Portland doing anything about it. We'll come back after it's clean. That's literally what they're saying. Nearby businesses have reported this camp to the city hundreds of times. 8 months later, Portland Bureau of Transportation is now clearing it. Sound of Portland Bureau of Transportation tow trucks echoed from a large homeless encampment buried in the woods off North Columbia Boulevard on Tuesday afternoon. It's a camp that's been growing in the St. John's neighborhood for years. It's taken a toll on all the businesses out here, said Jeff White, who runs Curt's RV and storage, located right next to the camp. Those living at the camp have targeted his business by breaking in and stealing from him numerous times, he says. It's been way too long. I know there's camps everywhere, but it's been like 6 or 8 months. I read these stories and I hear about these stories, and some of these camps go on for years. If they don't have enough phone calls to the city, they don't have enough phone calls to the county. They're there literally it's crazy. They're there for years. It was a hectic scene inside the camp on Tuesday as city crews and police worked to clear it. The homeless residents told KGW that some of the towed vehicles were stolen. So when you have people say, the homeless are just doing their own thing, that isn't true at all. You've got drugs being run out of the homeless encampments, guaranteed. Because if you watch any video at all or have any interaction at all with the homeless, they will self-admittedly state the fact that nearly 100% of the folks in the homeless encampments are on drugs. So you got to fund those drug purchases somehow. How do you do that? Well, you steal stuff. So you go out into the community, you steal from businesses, and you steal from homeowners. And you do carjackings and all kinds of other stuff, right? And that's just what you do. You're just basically stealing from the community around you. So, to say that they're just living peacefully off on their own. Yeah, untrue, not true. KGW reported on the same camp twice this summer. At the time, it was known as Grace's Oasis, and the homeless woman who ran it illegally charged people to rent the camp on the government-owned property.
Grace's Oasis. I'm working on a sign.
This is Angel Grace Brown. She runs the camp.
I've been watching this place for about 3 or 4 years.
Now about a dozen people live here, each paying Brown about $200 a month in rent, some of which goes towards camp maintenance.
It's safe. It's behind fences.
And this is city property?
It says it is, but I'm taking over.
She's put up no trespassing signs and chains to try and keep people out.
We don't allow people to be in here stealing and doing anything that's illegal.
We're just trying to make a safe haven for us away from the city because they're not treating us well at all.
What about all the shelters and other organized villages that the city provides?
For how long do they provide it though? And then they're right back out in the street again.
No, they connect people with social services and there's outlets for people to get help.
There isn't. You're looking at a person that couldn't get any help.
So there's a look at Grace. Grace basically just took over some city-run property, put some chains on it, and charged people $200 a month to keep it safe. That's wild. So, and the homeless woman who ran it illegally charged people to rent the camp on the government-owned property. That's very enterprising. She said that the $200 a month in rent that she was charging other homeless people on city-owned property was going to, clean up and maintain the campsite. Although from photos that I saw, they're wasn't a ton of maintenance going on, but I'm willing to throw them a bone and say, okay, whatever. Here's a little video of the cleanup happening and a car being towed. So that car that we just saw, for those of you on the audio portion, was absolutely stripped. What we saw was a car on a flatbed tow truck hauling away the car because they got to get rid of all these cars. So they got to hook it up with chains and drag it up on a flatbed and then haul it off to the junkyard. Sometimes there's dozens and dozens and dozens of these vehicles in these homeless encampments. And despite what the folks are saying, hey, we don't want any of those shenanigans here in our encampment, and they're hauling out the stolen vehicles as we watch it, right? So we know what the deal is. And that vehicle had its hood taken off. I mean, it was stripped down to basically, I think it had the 2 axles still on, but that was about it. Engine gone, hood gone, windows, you name it, everything just ripped out. They just stripped it. So these are stolen vehicles. They're not doing this to, because they're rebuilding another similar identical model in the back of their encampment. No, they're selling the parts. That's how they're funding their fentanyl addiction or their meth addiction or their heroin addiction or whatever else it is. This is how they do it. And there is a massive epidemic of stolen vehicles going on in the Portland area right now because of this kind of stuff. So let's keep going here and let's see what the deal is. This definitely does not help on the road to getting our life back on our feet at all, said Brian McKenzie, who's lived in the camp for 6 months. There's some troublemakers out here. Some of it needs to be cleaned up, but some of us, like I work a job, he works a job. Some of us are just trying to live out here and they're basically telling us we don't deserve a place to stay. And like one of the reporters on this story said, what about the homeless shelters? What about the city-sponsored housing? And Grace of Grace's Oasis, the caretaker of this camp, she basically said, yeah, but for how long? And she said, I am a person who wasn't able to get the help I need. So there's a lot on both sides that absolutely makes sense. But at the end of the day, you can't just take over city property, chain it off, and then start charging people $200 a month to live there on property you don't own. But I gotta hand it to Grace. Very aggressive move. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Hey, what she's doing is illegal, but it's very aggressive and it's ingenious. I mean, if the city isn't going to stop a whole bunch of people just camping there, why doesn't somebody just pop up and start charging people and do some value added benefit, which is, she said, she helps maintain it with the money she's got coming in. Interesting. Mackenzie knows that regardless of where he sets up camp, it's just a matter of time before he's told to move. And that's the whack-a-mole that we continuously talk about. Homeless encampment here, boom, done, cleared out, pops up over here, and it pops up over here until said time as the camp is clean, and then everybody moves back. So we see it time and time and time again. And this is just how it goes. So all this talk about moving people in, creating housing for these folks, they don't want to live there. They want to continue doing exactly what it is that they're doing in the homeless encampments, because otherwise they take advantage of what the city is offering them or the county is offering them or the state is offering them. They'll take advantage of a hotel room. Yeah. But they don't really have any rules when it comes to living in those scenarios. And oftentimes those are short-lived. And a lot of that was short-lived during the pandemic because everybody was afraid of, people getting Rona and living outside in congregations. At the time, we were told that if you live too close together, you might spread the Rona. But what I think they didn't realize, and I mean the powers that be that told us to hunker down in our homes, they didn't realize is that people living in tents have great ventilation. They're outside, fresh air. Yeah, interesting, right? As for nearby businesses, they're still holding their breath. We're still going to be doing our security patrols and so forth. We're constantly having issues. I would like to think the issues now are going to start to fade away, said White. But that's not the case, because we know that exactly the opposite of that is going to happen. The issue doesn't go away. If they've already established a camp once, they're more than likely going to go back and establish a camp again. And the reason is that camp provides something of value. And that's why as many people go to it as they do. And that's how you get these huge encampments. It's close enough into services, or it's private enough for people to do what they need. And I'm guessing Grace's Oasis, it was private enough where you could bring in those stolen cars. You could drive those stolen cars right in and start ripping them apart in the back. And for the most part, a lot of this was hidden from view. So this was a great setup for those in the chop shop business, right? I mean, that's literally what we've got going on. All right, let's take another look at, here's our last video segment here. We're just trying to make a safe haven. That's what...
This is what's left of a large homeless encampment buried in the woods off North Columbia Boulevard in the St. John's neighborhood. PBOT crews remove vehicles, some of them stolen, from the encampment that's been years in the making, formerly known as Grace's Oasis. This is the site that was charging campers rent to illegally squat on government-owned property.
It's taken a toll on all the businesses out here. I mean, it's not helping.
Jeff White runs Curt's RV and Storage right next door. Those living at the camp have targeted his business by breaking in and stealing from him numerous times, and he spent months reporting it to the city.
It's been way too long. I know there's camps everywhere, but it's been like 6-8 months.
That's how long it's taken the city to respond to this camp. But every car, every trailer, a home.
This definitely does not help on the road to getting our life back on our feet at all.
Brian McKenzie has lived here for 6 months.
To be honest, we'll probably just leave for a couple nights and come back after it's clean.
Really?
Really, that's how everybody does it.
In North Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
So bottom line is, a lot of the city's effort at cleaning up these homeless encampments, it's literally just a cleaning at a point in time, because the process is going to start all over again. And I see that here in Seattle all the time. Homeless encampment gets swept out, and those people literally walk down the street. Sometimes it's a block. Sometimes they go a mile, but that's a long way to push a shopping cart, right? Or get your buddy's car, who's ever got a car, to haul all your multiple loads of stuff. It's a lot of work. And so oftentimes they go just not very far, knowing that the minute the authorities are out of there and that nobody's really watching, they just go back. Now, the question is how much pushback will, say, the business that's next door or the communities that are next door, how much pushback will there be from these people when the homeless start to reestablish their camp? That's good. On these big cleanups, that's where the rubber kind of hits the road, because the city has a responsibility to keep these areas clean. But the reality is they don't have enough resources to be out cleaning out other homeless encampments, because everybody's screaming at Mayor Ted right now. We need this cleaned up. We need this cleaned up. And you can hear it when Mayor Ted is talking. He'll be in these meetings and he'll be like, all right, I've written down an address and I will follow up as to when we're going to be doing something about that encampment. The city is overrun. They are overrun with encampments. They can't control it all. They can't get to everything. And this is literally what they're doing. They are, they go out and clean out an encampment, and then they got to move on to the next one. And so while they're cleaning out that next one, the other one, like we just said, will come back after it's clean. That is the reality. And that is why this situation won't have any closure anytime soon, because the city doesn't have the ability to enforce the areas that they've already cleaned up. Pretty basic stuff. And until the city or the state or the county, whomever it is, draws a hard line in that sand, expect to see much of the same. Because why wouldn't the homeless go back to a good location, even if they're paying $200 a month? If it made sense to them, then that's what they're going to do. And if the city doesn't say no, why wouldn't they move back there? So some pretty logical approaches here as to why this is happening. And it's because leadership in Portland has basically said, just live wherever you want. It'll be fine. It'll be good. We trust you. Meanwhile, cars are being stolen. Fentanyl overdoses are happening on the regular. I was told that during any given police officer shift, I think it's in the Central District. Is it in the Central? Yes, I believe so. At least one officers respond to at least one overdose, and they often live because everybody's got the Narcan on them now. Sometimes as many as 3 overdoses, and this is just in one of the 3 precincts in Portland. So you've got multiple overdoses happening every single day, every single night. Fortunately, we've got Narcan, but which brings people back, oftentimes administered as spray to a fentanyl overdose death, brings people back. But those people, there's going to be a situation where they're not going to be able to get that overdose medication and they're going to die. And that's literally what you've got going on. You've got a ton of people, not just in Portland, throughout a lot of the United States. I think we had 10,000 overdoses last year in the United States, something like that. It's got to be way more this year. But the bottom line is that in these encampments, this is what's going on. You've got a massive drug problem. That's why you got people living wherever they want to live. They're not living in the city-provided shelters. They're not living in the bed systems. They're not doing that because when they're there doing that, they can't be out scoring the drugs. They can't be out stealing stuff, selling stuff. There's rules. And so you're just going to continue to see much of the same until you vote in some politicians who take a hard line in the sand, draw that line and say, if you cross this, you're going to jail. You either go to rehab, you go to jail, or you get the mental help that you need so desperately. And as a result, you've got a bunch of, people that should be in mental institutions roaming around the streets of Portland on drugs, stealing stuff so that they can get more drugs. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. And that's what you see on an ongoing basis in Portland. And that's why cleaning out of the homeless encampment, yep, it's good because you're getting all that garbage and those stolen vehicles out of there, but it's not a solution. It's a short temporary stopgap so we can say, hey, look at that encampment. We cleaned that one up. And so the neighbors and the business owners get a temporary respite in what is otherwise an overwhelming situation where the homeless just basically take over city property and may or may not charge their homeless neighbors for said occupancy in the homeless encampment. Grace's oasis. It's wild. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up on the next one. Bye for now.